Tired of everyone telling you to find your passion, but no one telling you how? Welcome to the Korean Connection, and I'm your host, Korean, an attorney with a passion for empowering others to use their many talents and skills towards a path of self-discovery and alignment. Join me as I share my personal stories, professional insights, and practical tips, and how you can connect the dots between what you're great at and turning your passions into purpose. Let's connect. Push it to the left, I can't go no more. Make it like no, I'm coming back home. I'm trying to roll on my own. I'ma be the greatest, write my name in the stone. Write my name in the stone. Yeah, I'm coming back home. Yeah, I'm coming back home. Write my name in the stone. Cause I'm coming back home. Cause I'm coming back home. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us again on the Korean Connection. Thank you for listening to the other episodes, and I hope you found them enjoyable. This episode, we're talking about forgiving yourself in order to move forward, right? And I think this was a very important topic to talk about because sometimes the feeling of failure and guilt and shame from dreams unrealized or ideas unfulfilled, that can become a ghost that sort of haunts you, right, for the rest of your life. And sometimes moving forward takes going back. And it takes going back to allow yourself that sort of grace and forgiveness for whatever past mistakes that you may have made in your life to find some sense of healing and reconciliation, that you can no longer have to, keep on dwelling on those things in order to propel you forward, right? And studies have shown that, people who self-doubt and have shame or dwell on past failures, they are more likely, right, to not see their dreams realized. Those are the people that will not have, connect their passions to purpose, right? Because once you find yourself sitting in the seat of self-doubt or what do those feelings kind of dredge up, right? Let's think about instances where you're about to embark on a new journey. And right when you're about to do something new or embark on that new journey, that hesitancy comes, right? And let's talk about what happens in that moment of hesitancy. In that moment of hesitancy, what your body is actually trying to do, use muscle memory, right? Your body sort of doesn't necessarily like new things. As a matter of fact, there is an actual name for it. So a study, a 2020 Journal of Positive Psychology study found that people who practiced self-forgiveness after setbacks were 42% more likely to persist towards their goals compared to people who dwell on their failure, right? And why is that? Because, failure, it floods the brain with cortisol. And what is cortisol? Cortisol is a stress hormone, right? Which shuts down problem solving and motivation, right? It's like you're trying to drive forward, but always looking in the rearview mirror, right? And as you can imagine, even with just that analogy, you see how difficult and dangerous that can be. You're unable to move forward when you're still looking in the rearview mirror. And so one of the things that we have to do in order to continue to connect our passion to purpose, which would be taking intentional steps, right, towards that goal. One of the things you have to do, you have to take an intentional step towards forgiving yourself for those past mistakes. For whatever it is, on my last episode, one of my last few episodes, I talked about how you push past fear, and I talk about, how I allowed fear to not let me realize certain dreams that I had. And in that vein, you're now still talking about those things 20 odd years later. it's things that really, really haunt you, right? It's literally the ghosts of your past that sort of haunt you, and it instills fear. It sort of like brings your body to a place of not wanting to venture into the unknown, right? Because the unknown is not safe. The unknown is unsecure. It's uncertain. Your body don't know how you will react to that new information, new circumstance, new situation yet, right? So it's sort of like, you know, that hesitancy is your body sort of trying to figure out, okay, I don't know what's going to come. And so let me revert back into what I already know, right? And what do you already know? Your only thing you already know is what happened in the past. So those past failures is what the only thing, right? The only evidence that your body can pull from, your mind can pull from in order to try to anticipate this new venture that you're going on. And of course, in thinking about that past thing, the only thing it has to go from is all those feelings that it dredges up of when you didn't succeed in that thing, right? When you failed in that thing, when that thing made you feel low, when you felt some sort of guilt from even not pursuing that thing. Because it's one thing when you failed, but the guilt also from not pursuing the thing that you wanted to pursue. And then thinking about, is it too late? Can I still do this? All of those thoughts that ruminates in you is what gives you that initial pause, because your body literally don't know what it's going to do. It doesn't know how it's going to react. And of course, your body is always in protection mode. So it's going to do what it does, which is to protect you, right? Whatever that it feels as though it's going to cause you harm, it wants to work towards preventing that. So, of course, embarking on anything new, you're going to hesitate and you're going to start ruminating on all those past failures. But if you dwell there, if you live in those past failures for too long, you're not planning ahead, right? You're not thinking about strategic ways in which you can solve those problems. You're not thinking about, you're not remaining, you're not even in a space of being open for new things to come your way because you're still thinking about the past. And what do we always know, right? When you dwell on something and when you focus all of your time and attention on that thing, chances are that is the thing that is going to materialize, right? So when you focus on failure and when you start thinking about all those feelings that you felt when you failed before and start living with them in your present, you're essentially manifesting the same repeated behavior, right? So that's not something that we want to do. And so one of the things that your body is not able to grasp in that moment of hesitancy is the fact that you actually learned something from those failures, right? Your body's not thinking about all the lessons, all the things that you will never do again because you know it doesn't work, because you failed doing it, right? And then your body also doesn't know all the things you learned from not having started that venture, right? It doesn't know all of the things all the great things that, that you try to learn from, not following through on that thing. You'll know that within yourself, man, if the opportunity presents itself again, I don't want to miss out on the opportunity because I know what happened when I missed out on that opportunity before, right? You did learn something. Your mind in that moment is not going to process and analyze how successful it can be, right? If you did that thing, your body doesn't work that way. It works off of past experience, right? It knows already what it's been through. And so it's always going to only pull from what you've been through, right? And so you are the one that's going to have to take that intentional step to say, I'm going to stop ruminating on this. I'm going to stop sitting in this place of doubt. I'm going to stop sitting in this place of failure. I'm going to stop sitting in this place of shame and really do something to push yourself out of it, right? To push past that fear, push past that feeling and make that intentional decision to leave it behind, right? You have to make the decision to leave it behind, because if you don't, you just continue to take it with you. And what good is that ever going to do, right? When you always have this thing following you around, creating self-doubt in every decision that you make, that makes you procrastinate and, and lack motivation and lack drive. That is what, sitting in that self-doubt does. So what are one of the ways in which we can combat that, right? I'm going to challenge you that in the moment of when you make that intentional decision to stop thinking about it, first start thinking about, because one positive thought is all it really takes, right? To kind of push yourself past, the place where you are. And so one of the positive thoughts that you can think about is, okay, what that is then, just say, you know what? Just even if you snap, I think the snapping might help too. Just say to yourself, whenever those thoughts pop up, when you start thinking about, oh, that's what happened to me, just say, that was then, this is now, right? That was then, and this is now. And in you sort of repeating that, you're telling yourself, okay, I'm not dwelling there anymore. I'm putting myself in the present. This is what I'm doing. And now I'm going to be marching to the beat of the drum going forward, right? And try it. Try it and see if it works. If that strategy doesn't work, we'll talk about something else that might work. But even in you just saying, you know what, that was then and this is now, you can feel yourself sort of pulling yourself away from the past, right? You just see the past going further, further, and further away from you as you're saying, this is now. And as you're saying, visualize it. Visualize how you're sitting. I'm sitting right now in this jumper. I'm sitting in this jeans. I'm sitting in these shoes. I'm sitting in this moment of not dwelling about that thing that you were just thinking about 2 seconds ago, right? And just doing that little simple exercise. That was then, this is now, right? And I think that, if you just start adding that in to your routine, it's going to become a habit. And eventually that is going to be the automatic thought for you, right? Whenever you start thinking about that thing that you don't want to think about, it's going to become more automatic for you and for your body and for your brain, really retraining your brain to think, okay, this is now. This is now, right? And even if it's just for that moment to just snap yourself out of it, that's a win, right? That is a win because now you're not in that moment anymore. One of the other tools that you can use is some people talk about writing it down, right? Writing a forgiveness letter to yourself because it's so important to just forgive yourself. You are your worst critic. No one is going to be more critical of yourself than you are, right? And I think that could be a good thing. There's good that can come out of self-critique, right? Certainly, talk about this on my other episodes as well, where you can get an opportunity to reflect and make better decisions when you self-critique yourself, right? But you don't want to be so overtly critical that now you're tearing yourself down, right? Because there's a line in which you can be positively critical, and then you can be depressingly, damaging to yourself and your self-esteem and your motivation. And that is definitely not the goal, right? The goal is to eventually push forward, right? And in pushing forward, it's taking intentional steps to do what the ultimate thing is, right? Which is to, connect the passion to purpose, of course. But you want to you don't want to do yourself more harm than good, right? Because at the end of the day, in this life's journey, you're going to realize that there's no external force that's coming to save you from yourself, right? Eventually, you are going to have to be the one to save yourself. And, the Korean Connection podcast, through all of these episodes of telling you to find the drive and make the connection and, embrace your uniqueness and your authenticity, is to really show you that all of the answers of how you're going to turn your passions into purpose lies within you. And if you don't take these intentional steps to get there, you just kind of, you're wasting time, right? Your timeline is still moving. You're still moving along your timeline. Is how accomplished are you going to be? How fulfilled are you going to be at the end of the day? And so, in knowing that there's no savior that's coming to save you, you have to do something about that. And in doing something about that, you have to, be your biggest cheerleader. And, tearing yourself down and being overly critical certainly is not fostering the biggest proponent you're going to have in life, which is yourself, right? You are your biggest cheerleader in life. And so, taking all of these intentional steps is what's going to get you to connect your passion to purpose, right? And so the intentional step that you want to take when you are in that place, in that sunken place, excuse me, you have to offer yourself some level of forgiveness for all the past mistake that you've made before. All of the guilt and the shame that you feel from whatever you didn't or did not, you did not accomplish or even attempt to accomplish, right? And even when thinking about my own personal experience, of course, I detailed some of those instances to you guys in terms of, things that cause you to live with regret, right? From missed opportunities, from, your inability to just simply volunteer for something, raise your hand for something, do something that might have been simple for you and you just didn't in that moment. You have to live with those things. And that is a constant thing that you probably will experience throughout your life's journey. But how you get through them, right? How you get through them, how you decide to move forward through them, how you propel yourself. Because I think, nowadays, everyone is looking for, this sort of external force, right? That's going to come to help you, propel you, or give you that thing, and, we can do all the self-help books, and we can do, therapy definitely always helps, and that's something that I definitely want to talk about as well on this platform, because ultimately you're growing into the person that you want to be, right? And so in growing into the person that you want to be, a part of it is identifying all of these things, these barriers that you personally face within your life are you'll come to find that we all collectively face within our lives, right? You'll see that we have a lot more shared experiences than differences. So, when you think about all of these things that you're going through, you have to take these, it has to be intentional in how you tackle them in order to move forward. Because life is a journey. Life is a growing process. As you learn more, you can do more, right? As you do more, you continue to learn more, right? So it's just sort of this continuous cycle that we go through in order to ultimately, feel that sense of fulfillment, right? And so, in just deciding to take these steps with me on the Korean Connection, you'll find that, and let me just give you one simple example, just how I've used this very tool to propel me to where I am right now, sitting right in front of you, okay? In order for me to be here with you right now, I had to go back and and tackle all of these things, all these gems that I'm telling you right now, all these obstacles that I'm telling you that you have to face. These are the things that I had to incrementally, right, do within my life in order to get to where I am today. And I'm not there yet. I'm nowhere near where I know I'm going to end up. I'm going to tell you that right now, right? And so my journey is continuing, right? And in order for me to even get to where I am right here with you today, there's so much that I had to forgive myself for. You know, just forgiving myself even for pain caused by other people that were even outside of me, right? That I sort of internalized and brought along with me, right? I have to get over missed opportunities. I have to get over, regrets. I have to get over just get over my own standing in my own way, right? And that's really what it comes down to. You stand in your own way, right? You are the one who, can determine, the next phase of your life, right? And so if you take these very intentional steps that I'm giving you on this platform, you'll see that, that feeling of being stuck, which to me is like the worst feeling, right? Stagnancy. That feeling of being stuck, it'll start dissipating. It'll start receding into the background because of all of these intentional steps that you're taking. So think about that one thing. What is that thing that you find the hardest to forgive yourself for? What is that thing that when you think about failures is the one thing that come to mind? Maybe it's not just one thing, maybe it's multiple things. But think about those things, right? And think about just what did it cost you to carry those things, that feeling with you all this entire time, right? And think about what you felt in those moments when you kept on thinking about those things. Nothing good, right? Nothing good came out of those feelings of just sitting in there dwelling in the shame and the guilt, and no good feeling came from that. In fact, you probably felt yourself sinking a little bit deeper into that chair, into that hole, right? So the goal is to climb out of it, right? Because once you climb out of it and you're back on solid ground, on equal footing, then you can step forward, right? You can't step forward when you're in a hole. You have to find yourself on equal footing first before you can step forward. And in order to get to that equal footing, you have to give yourself some grace. You have to give yourself some level of forgiveness, right? Sometimes it's something that you didn't do or you didn't choose to do, but it could be a traumatic event that happened to you in your life. Something that allows you yourself to feel as though you're less than, or that, you deserve to not have that thing, right? Those are also feelings that you sit in that hold you back, right? I can just imagine people who have gone through very traumatic events in their life, that, even if someone telling you it's not your fault doesn't prevent you from thinking that it's your fault, right? And so ultimately, it's going to have to come from you to feel as though, I can move past this. This thing that challenged me back then, it doesn't define who I am. Doesn't define me at all. And so, when you get that sense of confidence to know that you can push past this thing, you will see that, ultimately when you get to the other side of the thing, it's a beautiful thing, but it takes some drive and some intentionality on your part to want to get out of that sunken place, right? So, after you do that, this is then, that was then, this is now, and you're here standing that moment, I want to challenge you a little bit further to write it down. I think the act of writing things down not only solidifies it in your brain, it sort of it forces you to materialize it in the physical form as well, right? Because what I want you to do after, taking out of your brain and put it down on paper on something physical that you can crumble, that you can tear, that you can burn. And but first I want you to get it out. I want you to feel some sense of completeness in just getting the angst out. Whatever that thing is that you're feeling, write it all down. Write it down on the paper, right? And then after you write it down on the paper, I want you to write down all the ways in which you're going to give yourself grace to forgive yourself for that thing. Write down, from the perspective of your future self, right? The person who you want to be, ultimately, without this feeling. Think about them writing this letter to you, right? To yourself about this particular trauma or failure or non-starter dream, right? And think about the way in which they'll be writing it to you, right? Because they're on the other side of it. So when you're writing this letter of forgiveness to yourself, I can imagine that it's hard as you're feeling it to forgive yourself as you're feeling the thing. But take yourself out of that and write it from the perspective of your future self that have already overcome this thing, right? And visualize it. Visualize yourself smiling, looking down on yourself, like literally looking down on yourself. It's like, oh my God, I wish I could just tell you all the things I know now, to let you know that none of it matters. That, that the person that you're think of is long gone in terms of they're not even thinking about that thing anymore, right? Or, trust the universe that the universe is going to sort it out, right? Or that God has your back. Whatever it is that you believe in, leave it to that, right? Because, your future self who already knows that this problem has already been solved and this issue that's already been resolved can see how minute it is, can see beyond what you're able to see and feel. And so they're going to be writing it from that perspective. So imagine yourself doing it from that perspective, and you're going to see how small, right? It's going to come across when you start writing it from that paper. It's going to say things like, trust me, in the grand scheme of things, this is minute, right? It's going to say, in a few short months, you're going to be so far beyond this thing that you're thinking about that you're going to laugh about it, right? Or you're so close to healing where you are right now, you don't even know that you're just a week away from the haha moment that you're looking for to move past it. Just keep going, right? The future self that's looking down and you writing with a pen in your hand already have all the answers. So write from that perspective as though you already have all the answers, because guess what? Your future self already does. On the other side of writing this letter is a future self that's waiting to be born, right? That's waiting for you to make that intentional decision to write the letter, to snap yourself out of the past and into the future. They're just waiting for you. And so meet them. I want you to meet them, right? And so take the step, write the letter about the issue, and then write the forgiveness of that issue from your future self. And then I want you to sit down and I want you to read through it. Read through it, because even in reading that letter, you're going to see that you're going to feel so much better, right? Just reading the letter from your future self and sort of ingraining that belief system in your brain, you're already doing what you want to do, which is to be on the other side of it. You're already retraining your brain to not being this sunken place. You're already building new habits by doing this thing, right? And it's just a matter of exercising some level of consistency in doing the thing, and then it's going to become more automatic to you, right? And so after you finish reading through this letter, I want you to breathe through it. I want you to feel the resolution after writing the letter. I want you to feel that sense of completeness. I want you to get into the mindset of just letting go. And I just want you to just burn that paper, burn it. You can rip it, you could crumble it, but if burning it where it's, no longer in existence, it's not even in the dumpster where you can see it and pick it up, burn it. Because I don't want you to think about it anymore. You're literally burning that problem and you're burning that feeling along with the paper, right? And after you burn it, I want you to sit with that feeling. Sit with the feeling of what it feels like now that your future self has guaranteed you a better life, right? That you're now sitting on the other side of it. That your new self that has made an intentional step to not look forward, to not continue to look in the rearview mirror, is now able to say, you know what? That's it. I feel refreshed. I feel renewed. I feel rejuvenated. And now, even in this present moment where you haven't started working on the dream or connecting anything to anything yet, but just sitting there in that moment of accomplishment that I did this thing, and sitting in how that's making you feel is a win, right? Because you've already done something other than just looking back and just feeling awful about yourself, right? And after you've done that, you're going to find that, the next morning when you wake up, it's going to feel like a new day. I'm not saying that it's going to be like this big drastic thing that's going to happen. You're like, but you will feel that much better than you did the day before. And guess what? The fact that you're no longer going to be looking in the rearview mirror, this thing is no longer going to be a concern. The fact that you've now forgiven yourself for this thing and released yourself from having this thought, now you can make plans, right? Now you can set goals. Now you can dream about that future that you want to dream about, right? And now you can take intentional steps to try to connect those dreams to becoming a realization, right? Now you're looking in the windshield, right? You're looking in the front mirror of the vehicle while you're driving. And now what does that affords you? It affords you the opportunity to make positive decisions in your life, right? It affords you the opportunity to weigh options, right? It affords you the opportunity to say, am I going to go right, left, or continue to go straight on this path? You wouldn't be able to do that if you're still looking in the rearview mirror. So at the very least, just know that by writing it down, by looking at it from your future self, by destroying it, right? You have done the thing that you needed to do in order to move forward. And the possibilities are endless, right? And now all you have to think about is figuring out, what is it that I love to do? What are my passions? How can I make this work? Now you can be strategic in your next steps, right? In your forward movements. And failing forward as opposed to failing backwards or looking backwards, right? And so, yeah, do the thing. And, I want to hear if that works for you guys. I want to know if this is that, that was then, this is now. How does that work for you guys? And, I journal whenever I'm in the foggiest of places, and just writing things down always for me give me some sense of clarity, right? Because in writing it down, it forces you to think it through. There's so much that goes on when you write things down. And I really think that this is going to be helpful to a lot of people. Even if you don't know where to start, just start with the problem. The thing that you're thinking about, you're already thinking about it, just write it down. Write it down and then forgive yourself for it, okay? All right, guys, in wrapping up this episode, I just want to give you guys the actionable steps that I would like you to take when you find yourself in that place and you want to get yourself out of that hole, right? So the first thing we talked about is doing the snaps, right? That was then, this is now. right? And so that is one step you're going to take. The second step you're going to take is we're going to write it down, right? We're going to write down what your problem is. What is that thing? What is that regret? What is that fear? What is that trauma? What is that thing that's keeping you in that place, right? Write it all down. And then after you write it down, I want you to write a forgiveness letter in response to that thing from the perspective of your future self that has already overcome that obstacle, right? And that is going to allow you to give you, you're going to see how empowering that is. And then after you've wrote down the problem, wrote your forgiveness letter, then I want you to get rid of it in whatever way you seem fit, whether if crinkling it up and throwing it, tossing it in the garbage is sufficient, that's fine. If tearing it is sufficient, but guys, burn it. Burn it because we don't want it to even be in existence. We're putting it in physical form so that we can literally get rid of it, okay? We don't want it around. We don't want to think about it anymore, and we're going to release it from us, right? One of the other things that I want you, another actionable step, if that still doesn't work, what I want you to do is every morning when you wake up, I want you to express gratitude. Express gratitude for where you are currently in your life, for how you've been coping with this thing so far, right? Being grateful give you a sense of satisfaction with where you are right now, and you can carry that satisfaction, right? And if you're grateful, you're acknowledging all the blessings that you currently have. It's hard to do that simultaneously when you are in a sunken place, right? Because you're not being grateful, you're not acknowledging all the things that you currently have while you're being depressed, right? And so expressing gratitude is another actionable steps that you can take. And between these three things, guys, you will see and realize that on the other side of it lies freedom, right? Lies you being, your foot being on equal ground and footing in order to now take steps and be strategic in the things that you want to do in order to continue to connect your passions to purpose. And so that is my message for you guys today, how to get yourself out of that place and take those intentional steps to get you to the next level, right? Of forgiving yourself for those past failures and pushing past them in order to continue to connect your passions to purpose. Join me next time on The Korean Connection. Let's connect. Thank you guys for connecting with me today. Don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to my channel, The Korean Connection. To connect with me, you can email me at thekoreanconnection@gmail.com. And don't forget that sometimes your passion whispers before it roars. And if you're listening closely, the next episode might be where it gets louder. Let's connect. Push it to the